In a generic sort of off-the-shelf philosophy of mind course, you'll begin the term by distinguishing between two ontological frameworks. On the one hand, you'll have physicalism, and physicalism will be described to you as asserting that there's only one kind of entity, one kind of substance in the world. It has all of the properties that we associate with the physical world, and some bits of it also have the properties that we associate with mental creatures. Physicalism will then be contrasted with a different ontological framework, mind-body dualism, or just dualism. Mind-body dualism says there's two fundamental kinds of entity, two kinds of substance. There's the physical substance that has all the physical properties like extension and mass and number, spatial position. And then there's the mental substance. And the mental substance has all the sorts of mental properties that we normally associate with things that have a mind, like ennui and seeing red and so on and so forth. You'll look at this second ontological framework for a bit, discard it, and then spend the rest of the term probably focusing on different ways of trying to bring that first ontological framework, physicalism, to fruition theoretically. You might spend a little time talking about idealism, but probably not much. I'm going to want to cast my net in this class a little bit wider. We're not going to deviate too dramatically from the standard script, but we will deviate from it. And we'll start by distinguishing early on between monism, dualism, and pluralism as categories for ontological frameworks. I want to use these terms in a way that's slightly different from the way they're normally, at least implicitly, used in the philosophy of mind. Usually in the philosophy of mind, the terms monism and dualism are used just generically to refer to suppositions about the number of fundamental substances or kinds of entities. And we'll use them in a way that's consistent with that. However, I want to use these as descriptors of classes of categories. And specifically, what I want to suggest is that we use them with regard to different classes like the class of substances, the class of properties, and so on. In this text, I'm going to use monism to refer to the supposition within an ontological framework of a single fundamental category to fill that specific role. So substance monism says there's only one kind of substance. Now, it could be the idealistic substance or the physicalistic substance. Substance dualism says there are two kinds of substances: mind, body, objects of the sensory realm, the forms, and so on. And finally, pluralism will refer to those ontological frameworks that propose more than one kind of entity within a particular class of categories. Now, we don't normally think of substance pluralism, but there's plenty of substance pluralism in the presocratics, for example. Likewise, there's lots of pluralism when we think about properties. So when we're talking about the category, the class of kinds of properties, then monism has almost no adherents, maybe Zen Buddhism. Even dualism, not many adherents there either. Pluralism is the descriptor of choice when it comes to classes of properties. So dualism refers to ontological frameworks in which there's a supposition of exactly two fundamental categories to fill a specific role, and pluralism will refer to the supposition within an ontological framework of more than two categories to fill a specific role. One of the weaknesses, in my view, of contemporary philosophy of mind lies in the poverty of its ontological framework for discussing ontological frameworks. The literature's forgotten the possibility of pluralism, despite its existing and thriving in the ontological frameworks of contemporary science. Likewise, the literature recognizes and fixates on monism versus dualism of substances, while failing to acknowledge that these categories also apply to other classes within an ontological framework, like property categories. We'll continue with this discussion in the next lecture module.